All right, so here is part two of Vietnam for you guys. I left you on the 8th when we had left Ho Chi Minh City. So on the 9th of February, Walt and I ended up arriving in Nha Trang. Nha Trang is a Chinese tourist spot in Vietnam. That, if you know anything about China, it explains a lot. The beaches are not really the best beaches to kind of lay out on and hang out on. The sand is really rocky. It's really hard sand. So we didn't do a whole lot of hanging out on the beach. It was a little cold as well. There was a lot of breeze, and it wasn't as warm as some of the other places, especially after coming from Thailand, where it was really warm, really hot. Um, so we decided right when we got there, wanted to buy some tickets for the next day so that we were prepared, and then we had to go find a room. So we found a room that was quite close to the beach. And then we got some food down at the beach and kind of wandered around. The food was pretty good. It was a little expensive where we ended up, but at that point I was so kind of hungry and tired from traveling. We just needed to get food inside of me. So we kind of hit up the first spot we could find that actually had food. There are so many coffee shops in Vietnam. There is probably one coffee shop for like every 100 people. However, none of the coffee shops serve food. I don't know why. If you want food with your coffee, you have to go to a bakery. If you want just coffee, you go to a coffee shop because they don't have any food at the coffee shops. It's very odd. So there was a lot of coffee shops, very few restaurants where we were. We had to do quite a bit of wandering to actually find somewhere where there was food. So by the time we got there, I was just kind of happy to eat. We then decided the one cool thing about Nha Trang is there are some amazing temples there. When I had been researching where we kind of wanted to go, it had said it was a tourist beach town, like a resort spot, but it said there were some really nice temples, so that's kind of why we picked it. We ended up deciding, like, oh, we can walk it, it'll be fine. Like, yeah, let's just walk to this temple. We ended up walking like 2 kilometers to get to this temple. We burned our shoulders so badly. It didn't feel really hot while we were there, but we were not prepared enough we didn't have any sunscreen because flying from Thailand into Vietnam, they took away the sunscreen that we had bought while we were there because we didn't have any check-in luggage. We just did carry-on. And we forgot to actually go buy some sunscreen when we first got to Vietnam. And it took a long time to actually find some. Burned our shoulders so badly. It was really, really terrible. And decided we ended up stopping for coffee on the way to the temple because it was such a long walk. It was at that point where you're just like, I'm tired, I'm so burned. Sat down, tried my best to like put moisture on my shoulders so that they would like maybe stop burning a little bit, but oh, it was so terrible. And then we ended up at the temple. The temple was really cool. A lot of the different areas of the temple, though, in order to actually go in and see the inside of the temple, you had to put on this long robe shawl thing. You couldn't have your shoulders uncovered. You couldn't have shorts on. You couldn't have a hat on. There's a lot of different rules to be able to actually go into the temple. So I went into one of them at one point. There's a lot of other little temples kind of around where I ended up not going in because I didn't want to have to go find the robe again. And there was a giant Buddha we saw, but I don't think it was at that one. I'm pretty sure that was the next day. So I will get to that in a second. Kind of rewind. Let's go back. After the temple, we took a taxi back. It was a really long walk. Like I said, we were quite burned. We were really tired by the end. So we took a taxi back to our room and had a nap because we had only had about 45 minutes sleep the night before because we were on the train. And it was so tiring. We took trains almost every night that we weren't staying in a room in a hotel. And then we went to go find food for dinner. We ended up at this place that I don't know if it was because of the street food we had in Thailand. I had a taste of a burger, but it wasn't a real burger, and I really wanted a burger, so I was kind of disappointed because they had said there was one on the menu and then they ended up not having any. Walt just ate pho the entire time we were there. I don't think he really ate anything else other than that. I wanted to try everything that Vietnam had to offer because I've had pho before. I love pho, but I want to try. I don't know what else there is that Thailand or Vietnam has for food. But then I just really wanted some beef, and they did not have any. So they had this other beef dish that they had recommended for me. I don't know what it was. It was like a really weird piece of beef that was covered with this like sweet peppercorn Alfredo sauce. It was a little different. I would not, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I wouldn't eat it again. It was one of those moments where you're actually a little disappointed that what you wanted they didn't have, and that because you wanted this certain thing you didn't get the pho. And then we ended up walking through a marketplace. When we first walked through the marketplace, I was, again, hungry and tired, and it was not really cool. Ate, and then we walked through again. It was kind of interesting seeing all the different booths, and there's so many different kinds of tea that they sell in Vietnam. And then we ended up getting to see another New Year's Eve show. I don't know how that happened. We got really lucky as we were traveling through Vietnam. We ended up getting to see all of these different kinds of shows and performances without even realizing that they were going on or happening in that area. We didn't stay out a whole lot that night or very late because we were both pretty tired, so we ended up back at the hotel to go to bed. The next morning, we walked around the marketplace for a bit. We found one of those like tourist booths that kind of told you what was in the area and things to see. Tried a coconut baozi. So like I said, like a lot of the food was very similar to Chinese food in a way. And they had we tried this meat baozi, and in the middle was this like an egg. It wasn't terrible. It was different. I think I actually prefer Chinese baozi over Vietnamese baozi, but they had these green baozi, and inside is coconut, and they're a little sweeter because like the bread itself is a little sweeter than the Chinese baozi, like even the meat ones. The coconut ones, those are something that I wish that would actually have in China, because I would eat those all the time for dessert. They were so good. And unfortunately, I only got one while I was in Vietnam. I would go back just for those. We ended up then walking to another temple, which is where we saw the Buddha. There was a giant Buddha at the top of this, and then a whole bunch of graves. They have the kinds of graves where it's like the walls of graves, and they have probably like a cremated urn behind the picture and the word, like the nameplate. There was quite a few up there. It was kind of cool to see that. And then we ended up going to see an old Catholic church, which was massive. The architecture was really cool. Not overly French, I guess, but it had that European style to it. And then we went for dinner, and then got a whole bunch of different travel snacks. That was a little frustrating. It was really hard in Vietnam to find places to get snacks for traveling. In China, like every other street corner, there's like a Family Mart or an OK store or some kind of convenience store. There was very few convenience stores in Vietnam, at least the places that we went to. So we went into this big kind of grocery store-like place. We have our backpacks on because we checked out of our hotel room. We had to because we were leaving that day. So we've been carrying around these giant bags with us all day to go to the temple, to the cathedral, for dinner, everything. And as we're wandering through this grocery store, we're kind of like picking a couple things. We're feeling pretty good, and we're tapped on the shoulder and told that you can't have your bags in here. Where are we supposed to put these? Like, we saw little lockers outside, but they would not have fit our bags. Like, really? I've been walking around all day, lugging all this weight around in your tent. Now that I've been in here for the last, 10 minutes, and I have stuff in my hands that I want to buy, you're telling me I have to leave and come back? It was kind of frustrating. I'll admit, I kind of had enough at that point. So we had gone to this park, sat there for a little bit, and I kind of left Walt there for a minute. I was like, I'm gonna go because we have to have stuff for this train ride. Like the last time we didn't have any food, it was terrible. I was so hungry by the time we got here, and I was miserable when we first got to Nha Trang because I was hungry. I want to make sure that doesn't happen the next place we're in. So I'm gonna go get some stuff. I need a moment. You stay here with the bags. So I kind of left him. I felt a little bad, but he's really, really good with me. He's really patient. I think he kind of knew, like, you're tired. I'll just let you do your thing, and I'll just wait here with the bags. It'll be okay. I'll just read. So I went back to the store to go get some snacks. And then we sat in the park and then ended up on another sleeper train where we actually got a bed this time for a 12-hour train ride. We decided to go to Da Nang from Nha Trang without stopping. And when we woke up in Da Nang on the 11th, decided that we didn't want to just stay there because we were going to end in Da Nang because we're where our flight was. So we immediately got a ticket to Hue on, it turned out, the same train we had just gotten off of. So we just got off the train, had to go buy a ticket, and the communication was really hard. The woman wasn't really understanding what I was asking her. So finally got a ticket with 5 minutes before the train left to spare to get on the train. So now we have to get our bags. We have to run around. We have to run down the platform to get to our cart, get on the train, and then the door to where we were going to stay was locked. So we had to get this guy that was in our train area, one of the people who worked on the train, to come down and unlock the door for us. Kind of a shit show. But we made it. We got back on the train, we got our new tickets, and we ended up in Hue on the 11th. So we walked around to try and find a place in Hue to stay. When we first got off, there was a giant map that kind of showed you the area. So we kind of looked at like where there were some really nice places, where there were some historic places, and I managed to find a place to stay. It was a pretty nice location. I will say the best place that we ended up staying in all of Vietnam was actually in Nha Trang. Nha Trang had the nicest house that we ended up staying in. The one in Hue was quite nice though. It would have won by far if there had been some hot water, though. There was no hot water. It was so cold. We got up there, there was like a kind of like a bed and breakfast feel, just without the breakfast part. So it was like somebody's home they had opened up to us. Put our stuff in there, and then we ended up walking down to the historic palace in Hue. Again, I'll put a link in the description for you guys for the palace. The palace was huge. It is massive. We walked around the palace. It took us, I think, close to 2 hours to get through the entire thing. And that was not even with like, we didn't stop a whole lot at different areas to read lots of the signs. We kind of like just wandered around. And it took us like almost 2 hours to get through the palace. It's massive. It was really cool though, and really interesting to walk through this palace because it had been there during the Vietnam War. You could actually see areas where like a lot of the palace had been restored, and there were areas that had not been restored. You can actually see the bullet holes still in the walls of like these crumbling areas. Kind of interesting, a little sad walking around. It was really neat. Right outside of the palace, there was this great Vietnamese restaurant we ended up going to. It was probably my favorite Vietnamese food that we had the entire time we were there. It was really cool. It was this restaurant that was run by all deaf and mute people. So at first, like, I wasn't sure if he just did not, the guy who was serving us didn't know any English and didn't want to try talking to us at all. Turns out they're all deaf and they're all mute. So it's this restaurant that these people started to give these people an opportunity to work. It was really cool. Like I said, the food was like the best we had had since being in Vietnam. We then ended up at a bakery before we went back to our hotel. To walk back took quite a bit to get to the hotel from the palace itself. The palace was on the other side of the river, so we had to walk over the bridge to get there. Ended up walking back rather than taking a taxi. And then went to the bakery, tried some Vietnamese desserts, and then ended up back at our hotel. That night we had asked the woman who ran the little hotel if we could book a tour through her. So we ended up booking tour for the next day for the 12th for the DMZ tour, which is the demilitarized zone down in Hue, because this is where a large part of the Vietnamese War was actually fought. So there's quite a bit of history there. So we had to leave at 6:30 in the morning on the 12th. We had to wait for some other people. We got to eat a breakfast that was included in the package. It was like a fried egg and a piece of bread. And then we had to drive 2 hours to meet our guide. So we woke up at 6:30, but it didn't actually start until about 9 o'clock. And we were actually just outside of Hue in Dong Ha. So this is where there's a lot of stuff that we did in a very short amount of time because it was only for the day. So the first place we ended up stopping at to take some pictures was the rock pile. I don't remember if there's a name other than rock pile, but this is where the American military had landed and set up a base on the top. I believe I have an old picture of what it looked like. If I don't, I'll find one from the internet, put it up for you guys to see, so you can see the comparison of what it used to look like when it was a base and what it looks like now. Right now, it looks like a quarry. So you're kind of like, when we first stopped, it's like, why are we stopping here to take a picture? It looks like a quarry in the Rocky Mountains. Like, I would never take a picture of that. Now I know, it was the base. The second place we stopped at to take some pictures was the river that separates the north and the south of Vietnam. The American military actually had to swim across this river because there was no bridge. It was a massive river. That would have taken a lot of energy, a lot of time, and like the banks are so big and massive and the vegetation is so thick. Just traveling around and like seeing what the military had to go through is just crazy. The third place, then we briefly stopped at a traditional village on the side of the road to take some pictures of the different houses. There was a bunch of kids sitting out on one of the houses, and a bunch of the people from our tour group went over to say hi. It was a little, I think as a child I would have been a little creeped out. Like, what are these weird foreign people doing coming over to talk to me? And I work with kids every day. I didn't really want to go over and talk to more kids. So, but it was kind of nice seeing what their houses actually look like. And then we got back into the car to drive for a little bit. I have to say, I ended up sitting next to this guy who turns out he was from Canada. He worked in Guangzhou as a teacher at an international school. He talked a lot. Again, I don't know if maybe I'm approachable. Walt made a comment, though, about like, you know, you have people talking to you in Thailand, and I have people talking to you in Vietnam, and they don't stop talking. And I kept getting shoved next to him in the back. Walt would take right next to the window and get smooshed up against the window rather than sit next to him and have to talk to him. So that was fun. The fourth place we went to them, we drove to this area that the Americans called Hell on Earth. This is the place where, if you've ever seen the movie Platoon, where William Dafoe's character is gunned down, it's so surreal being there because you could just, I don't know, it's really weird. You saw a whole bunch of old bunkers, and there were different planes and tanks and things that were actually used. Some were recreations of the different bunkers. So I have a whole bunch of pictures for you guys of that. I will also put a link in the blog to another video that I took of one of the bunkers that I was in for you guys, so you can kind of see what I got to see while I was there. It was really eerie being there. There was this giant plane at one point. I had walked under to get to the other side of the plane further away from where the tour group was and where the bunkers were and everything, and like some of the recreated bunkers. And the other side of that plane, the creepiest feeling. Like, I don't know, you just didn't enjoy being over there. It was like you felt like you had to get back to the other side of this plane. And it turns out, like, Walt and I had separated, just kind of wander around. He felt the same way. And it turns out there was like old bunkers that had actually been used a little further out into the field on that side of the plane. It's kind of interesting, really eerie feeling. It was really cool though, being there and seeing kind of what the military had to go through and what they lived in during the war. We then ended up back where we started to get some lunch, which we had been told, like, when you read it, it says that the lunch is included. And we asked a couple times, and they're like, yeah. And then everybody ordered, and then everybody had to pay for their lunch because it wasn't included. The meal that was included was breakfast. And the lunch was only included if you had bought that specific tour package from that place. So I don't know what we paid for some of our money. You felt a little ripped off. The tour itself was really cool still. You got to see a lot. But I would say book through an actual tour company if you decide to do it, if you're ever in Hue. Don't go through a random hotel. Go to an actual tour company so that you can make sure you know exactly what you're getting before you get there. After that, we then drove through a different area. We didn't actually stop to take a picture. We got to see a bridge where the women would wait for their men to return from the war on reunification day. So the yellow side of the bridge is the south side, and the blue side was the north side of the bridge, and the women would meet in the middle. And they just had painted it after so that you could see which side was which. But this is where they would wait to see if their men would come home from the war. So then we ended up at the tunnels. So the tunnels is an area that a whole bunch of the Vietnamese had actually lived in during the war. I honestly can say I could not have done it. Walt has some pictures of the tunnels. My camera doesn't work, or the phone camera didn't work down there, and I haven't gotten them from him yet. So I will post those on my blog another day when I get them from him. The tunnels themselves, there was 3 different levels. The top level was 12 meters deep, second level is 15 meters deep, and the third level is 20 meters deep. And the people that lived in there, they lived in there from 1966 to 72. And there were approximately, at one time, like 350 to like 600 people who lived down there. There were 17 kids that were actually born in the tunnels. And the tunnels themselves were like about maybe 5 feet high in areas and like 3.5 feet like wide. They were not very big at all. I know my mother is really claustrophobic, and I kept thinking, like, there's no way I'd get her down in these tunnels at all, ever. They're dark. You can't see where you're going in some areas. They have, they ran electricity through the tunnels now so that they could light up some of the lamps. But, I mean, back when people were living down there was no light at all. It was really eerie being down there. And then there was moments where, like, I was near the back of this line. There was moments where, like, there was tunnels that would branch off to one side and you couldn't see down there because it was so dark. It was really creepy. You kind of had this, like, almost like a weird horror movie vibe where you're like, there's probably some, like, weird Vietnamese family who never left the tunnels and they're still living down here, and then, like, we're gonna get kidnapped and murdered. And that's like maybe I watch way too many horror movies, but that's the feeling that you kind of got. There was a section that did collapse at one point. So there was a whole section of tunnels that you couldn't go through anymore because they had been shut down, closed off through just nature. And apparently when it rains, they do flood. So when it rained a lot, because people who lived down there had to evacuate so that they didn't drown in their tunnel homes. Really interesting. I took a whole bunch of pictures of that, so I'll put that up for you guys. And I'll also put a link up to a description about the tunnels for you so you can learn some more. After the tunnels, we then ended with a military cemetery. And it was a really short kind of ending. The cemetery did look a lot like the military cemeteries you see in DC. Lots of white tombstones. But a lot of them didn't have names on them. So I wasn't sure who exactly they were for. I know it has something to do with the war. We were told kind of briefly with our tour guide about what they were for. But we weren't told like necessarily who they were for. We then drove back to Hue, so we drove for another like 2.5 hours to get back. Walked around to a more touristy area of Hue for his dinner, and then had some coffee. There was a restaurant that sounded really good that I really wanted to go to, and it ended up being closed because it was the holidays. So a lot of restaurants were actually closed. It was kind of sad. And then we found one hotel or restaurant we were kind of like umming and ahhing, well, do we want to go here? Do we not want to go here? And we were given a menu to look through. And it was a little pricey, but the food looked okay. And then we grabbed another menu so that we could each look. And there were 2 different prices. It turns out that the restaurant had like a menu for tourists and then a menu for local people. And they had different prices for their food. So we decided that we were not going to eat there. We left and went to the restaurant right next door. I didn't know what I wanted to eat. It was, I wasn't feeling a whole lot. So I saw a potato salad on the menu. And I thought, okay, that's a little, potato salad feels a little fresher sometimes than other things that you could eat. It sounded good. I haven't had potato salad in a while. So, okay, I'll have that. I literally got a bowl of salad, like a weird Caesar type salad, and a plate of French fries. So I got the literal potato and salad for my potato salad. It was like a lost in translation dish. It's like somebody who had owned the restaurant had heard foreigners talking about like eating potato salad at a picnic or something. It was like potato salad. And I kind of put the 2 in their head together and was like, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, I know, like the potato and salad. So I put this on the menu. It was really odd. So that's what I had for dinner. Then we ended up at a coffee shop. I had some coffee and some tiramisu before we went back to the hotel. The coffee shop itself was kind of cool. Upstairs, they had taken the giant teacups from the teacup ride that you spin and make yourself really sick, usually called like the Mad Hatter. And they took that from probably some old fair that had been shut down, and they used those as their coffee tables. So that was kind of really cool, sitting in one of those little booths. And then we walked back to our hotel, and we ended up watching some Monty Python, of all things. We got internet, so we watched some TV, and it ended up being Monty Python. And again, there was no hot water. We really hoped there had been hot water when we got back, and there was not, so we had a really quick, very cold shower. And then on the 11th, we woke up, went out for some coffee, and then we went out to a restaurant to try some local food. We tried this thing called nem lai. It's like ham on a bamboo skewer that has been barbecued, and a pancake that was filled with like the shrimp, pork, and veggies and deep fried. I forgot to mention the food that we tried there that night. So then on the 13th, we decided that was our last, so the 12th was our last day in Hue. On the 13th, we headed to Da Nang. So we ended up getting the soft berth, but it turns out the soft berth, they had turned them into soft seats. So we had actually wanted soft seats. We walked in and they were the soft berths. We were a little confused, but there are numbers on the back of the wall. And it turns out that they turned the soft berths into soft seats. So there's like 3 on the bottom, 3 seats on the bottom of this bed. And then from there, we wanted to find out where the airport was, because this is our last area in Vietnam. We're flying back to Guangzhou from Da Nang, so we need to know where the airport is. It took us forever to walk to the airport. We knew that was the only place we were going to find a money exchange because all of the banks were closed because it was a holiday. It took us close to 2 hours, I think, to walk to the airport from from the train station, and it doesn't look that far on the map. It is really far. So we ended up taking a taxi back from the airport to a hotel. We wanted to stay on the beach. We thought, okay, it's our last place. We'll get some money, and then we will spend a little extra cash and do a hotel that is close to the beach. It'd be nice, like a nice, relaxing beach vacation for the end. The city itself is so spread out. Da Nang was a really weird place. Like when online, you're told some really great things about Da Nang. And it's not a bad city, don't get me wrong. But it is like a dying city, is the feel that it had. There was a lot of half-finished hotels and buildings that were under construction. There were areas that were dark and had no street lights. And because it was the holidays, there were so many things that were closed. And the city is so spread out. There was like nothing to do in areas. It was really kind of a depressing, like it was a dying city. It's like their Detroit is what it felt like. But we got a taxi to the beach, and we managed to find a hotel. I feel like we probably should have kept looking, but we kind of settled on a hotel. Again, we had no hot water. I don't know if Vietnam doesn't have hot water, or it's hard to get hot water there, up north. But yeah, there was no hot water for the showers, which was really sad, especially for the amount of money that we were spending, because we spent less money in Hue for a place that had no hot water, which was, because of what it was more forgivable, where this is like an actual hotel. This is supposed to be like a resort hotel on the beach, and there's no hot water. So that kind of sucked a little. And the air conditioner was also broken to top it up, and there's no fans in the room, and it was a little hot. And you're like, oh man, come on, like I'm spending money on this place. There's no air conditioner and no hot water. And so we finally found this place, went out for some food, settled in the hotel for a little bit, asked for some towels and some new sheets for the bed because there were no towels or sheets. It's kind of like they didn't expect anybody to show up to the hotel. And maybe they didn't. Maybe everybody leaves Vietnam for the holidays. Got all of our stuff ready, and then we walked down to find this burger joint. We had looked it up online because Walt had known. It's getting towards the end. We've been traveling a lot. I'm feeling a little tired. I think I was coming across maybe a little cranky. And he knew that I had wanted this burger, so he's being a real sweetheart and had looked up this place to find a burger. He's like, let's go here. Walked all the way down to find out that it was closed because it was the holidays. Thankfully, we had seen a sign for this place called Tam's, and it was open. So we ended up at Tam's place, and she actually sold burgers as well. And the burgers weren't terrible. They weren't beef, though, I don't think. I think it was like a mix of beef and pork. But, you work with what you can get when you're in Vietnam, I guess. But so for what they were actually really good. They were huge. They're massive burgers. And we got to meet Tam. We got to talk to her, and that was really cool. So it ended up working out really good for us as well in the end, because we got to meet this really cool woman. She was like a 50 or 60-year-old Vietnamese woman named Tam, and she had learned about burgers when she was 5 years old during the Vietnam War from a soldier from America. I guess this American soldier had been telling her about burgers and told her what they were, and she remembered that from when she was 5, and over the years had been like perfecting this recipe to try and make it taste like what she thought they should taste like. And she did a really good job of it. She had 3 different restaurants, or 3 different soldiers who came back to her restaurant that she had met when she was 5 years old, including the one who had told her about the burger, she was saying. That was really cool. And there's like so many different pictures all over the walls of different soldiers and family members and people who had kept coming back over and over and over again, different returning customers, to this little tiny shop. It was really neat. She apparently had a marriage. She had 1 kid with this guy, and her husband left her when she was 22, and then came back 14 years later with another woman, but he hadn't divorced her yet. And then she ended up adopting like 7 kids and had worked for 20 years, like carrying stuff on her shoulders with like those giant poles. And then now she's been serving in the restaurant, like owned this restaurant for 20 years. And then she keeps people coming back years and years later. And apparently there was this guy she had liked when she was 16. He was like an 18-year-old American Indian guy. And she's been waiting. Told Walt and I've been waiting for my boyfriend to come back. Like, my husband left me, my kids are all grown up now, and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm waiting for my boyfriend to come back and meet me. So I don't know how far this will get out there, but if there is a American Indian man who dated a girl at the age of, when he was 18 in Vietnam named Tam, she is still in Vietnam in Da Nang, and she is waiting for you. So that'd be kind of cool if by happenstance this gets to him and he ends up going back to meet her. So then we came back towards our hotel from Tam's place after saying goodbye to her and walked along the water and had a nice kind of romantic walk, I guess, along the water. You know, I was definitely ready for a break. I needed some rest. And I felt really bad because I know that I can be a miserable person to be around when I'm grumpy and tired and just need a break from everything. But Walt was really good. He's really patient and he's really great. So the next day on the 14th we slept in, which was so wonderful. And then we walked down to this museum. It was a lot of sculptures, I guess, and sandstone stuff in the museum. But we ended up not going in because it was so incredibly expensive to get into this museum. Like, it was more money to get into this museum than it was to get into the Independence Palace in Hue. I'm not spending more money to get into a museum with sandstone than I am to get into an Independence Palace or the historic palace in Hue. Like, that's ridiculous. So we didn't go in. We saw the outside of the museum. So we walked around. Ended up eating a really expensive lunch that was only okay. Ended up at a market where we got a couple little things for people. And we sat at a coffee shop for a couple hours so that we could kind of just relax, use the internet, things like that. And then we ate some Thai street food near the Dragon Bridge. So there's a giant dragon bridge that connects the area that the airport's on with the area where the beach is. And at night, around like 9 o'clock, the dragon actually breathes fire and sprays water everywhere, which was really odd and kind of cool. So we decided to hang out near this bridge. We thought we were going to have like very little time to get there because we were going to go to the museum and everything. Turns out we had a lot of time because we didn't go to the museum. So we ended up finding this street vendor, and it was Thai food, of all things, and not Vietnamese food. The best food we had in all of Da Nang was actually this Thai street food. And it was like this lady boy had come down from Thailand and opened this street food corner in Vietnam. He was hilarious to watch. And the food was great. So that was a really fun time, kind of hanging out near this bridge. And we had our Thai food and we kind of wandered around, found a place to sit, and then watched the bridge go off. And then we went back to the hotel because the next day is where we had to head back to the airport in order to fly back to Guangzhou. I will say it was a little sad coming back to China, I guess. Like, you know, I wanted to maybe do a little more, see a little more, but at the same time we had done so much that it was really nice to be able to come home. And then we got a whole entire day where we could just relax and do nothing, which was really nice because on the 17th, we had to work. Normally we don't work on a Wednesday, but we came back from our vacation. We had the 16th to do nothing, and then on the 17th we had to go into work to do our Friday work in order to make up for the Friday we had missed on the 5th of February. Then on the 18th, I became another year older, definitely not another year wiser, and I didn't have to work, but we had to go in to do this annual lunch thing for our work. So you kind of did have to work in the end, is what it felt like. which sucked a little bit. Got really drunk beforehand. Like, Haley came over, because we didn't want to do this. But it's not just a lunch that you have to go to and, like, see people get awards and things. We had to perform. Nobody wanted to perform. Nobody wanted to do this. So Haley came over. We each drank about a bottle of wine each. Wandered over to the performance. Did our thing. Had some subpar food at this hotel. And then from there we ended up at 13 Factories for some real food. And when I say this, I'm not just like cutting down on Chinese food and being like, oh, like we're gonna have real American food at 13 Factories. Even the Chinese people were like, this is terrible. Like, I don't want to eat this. So it was just terrible Chinese food. I ended up at 13 Factories, had a drink there, got some birthday shots from Paul. And then from 13 Factories, we wandered around to Social & Co. Had another drink there. Pretty much got kicked out of Social & Co. for being too loud. Or almost got kicked out, I guess. And then we ended up going to KTV, because it was also Flick's birthday on the 18th, which is kind of cool to find out we're the exact same age on the same day. So we went to KTV that night before we had to do another full week of work, coming right back from our vacation. It was fun. It was a good birthday, a lot better than my last birthday where I spent the day in the hospital. But again, it kind of sucked having to do something for work when you first get back, even if it's supposed to be fun. So we worked our week. We had to do a demo training on Tuesday, and then on the 24th, Walt and I went into Hong Kong for the day so that we could go see Deadpool. I don't know if any of you guys out there are like diehard superhero comic book fans. If you are and have not seen Deadpool yet, you have to see this movie. It is by far Ryan Reynolds' best film, and by far I think one of my favorite superhero movies right now. Hilarious, so well done. I won't say anything, because if you say anything, it can ruin it for other people, and if you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it for you because it was so good. It is something that I will go out of my way to actually purchase, so I can help the studio out and everybody so that they can make more of these, because yes, it was just wonderful. That's where I'll leave that. And then we came to the end of February. Had to, of course, wait until the 29th to get paid. We didn't get paid on the 26th because, surprise, it's the leap year, so our last working day is Monday. So you have to wait an extra 3 days to get paid. That's the Disney way. It was good. But then March came. And on Wednesday, Haley now does trivia at the Brew on Wednesday nights. So that Wednesday, Walt and I ended up down there to do trivia with her. Met up with Joey and Paul, Ryan, Mike kind of was on our team, this guy Josh. So we had a pretty good team. Came in solid third place and won some shots, which was really nice. On the 7th of March, Simon, who is our new LLD for THP, wanted to take us all out because he's been there for about a month and a half now, maybe 2 months. And he wanted to take us all out for drinks because we haven't been drinking or gotten drunk together yet. He's been there for a while now. So we all ended up at the Happy Monk, which is in the Happy Valley near our work. And the Happy Valley is like a mall area. So we all went out for drinks together. I have been going back to the gym though, and if I get any alcohol or grease in me, I lose all energy. I'm assuming this is because I don't have a gallbladder anymore, so I have no way of actually digesting anything. So I decided to be healthy, and I did not drink anything or eat any greasy things so that I could go to the gym the next day. I got beer all over my hair, courtesy of one of our lovely friends who drank a little too much. But minus that, it was not a bad evening out for a work night for myself, because I have to work on Tuesdays. Then on the 9th, I literally just stayed in with Walt. We did nothing. It was wonderful. Tuesday was a shit show. My classes were off the wall ridiculous. I was so unhappy when I left work. I actually messaged Walt and was like, this is the worst day that I've had right now with this class. Like, I'm so unhappy. And I was just essentially just complaining. I mean, that's why you date people, and that's why you get married and have partners, is so you have someone to complain to that's not going to be like, listen, I'm tired of hearing you complain about everything. So I complained to him. And the message I got back was like, well, what would you say if I told you I was coming into the city? Because he lives down in Panyu. Well, I'm assuming if you're coming in the city, you're going to go have beers with John and the brew. So, like, go have fun. I'll be fine. Like, I'm really not that upset. I'm just frustrated. Like, I'll be okay. It's like, no, like, I'm just kind of coming in. I was like, well, why were you coming into the city? Like, what was your plans? Like, I don't want to disrupt your plans for this. No plans. Like, I just decided now I'm coming to the city for you. So it's kind of nice. So we hung out Tuesday night here, and then just hung out all Wednesday and some of Thursday, actually. It was a really lazy weekend. We got nothing done, either of us. It was needed, and yet really something we should not have done at the same time, because we both have a lot of stuff we actually have to do. But it was wonderful. I would love it if we could just have like a solid week of that and then go back to real life. And on the Thursday, the 10th, was Jesse's birthday. So happy belated birthday to my brother. He is now a quarter of a century old, which makes me feel really old, knowing that my little brother is 25. I will have to mail a bottle of Baijiu, some really strong Chinese liquor, his way. And then we come to this weekend. So I finally caught up again. So on the 16th, yesterday, Walt and I went into Hong Kong again to go to Disneyland. We were supposed to meet up with Haley and her brother. Her brother came in from the States to visit her for like a week or so. They ended up bailing on us because of things that had happened beyond their control, and they were in Macau for a lot longer than they thought they were going to be. So we had these tickets to go to Hong Kong. It was like, well, we spend the money, kind of have to go now. Like, I'm not going to not go and use these tickets. The day was a little overcast. It's not a holiday or anything. It's a Wednesday. We actually saw Girl Drew while we were there in the train station of Hong Kong. Hung out with her, had a coffee, and talked for a little bit. She was there to get some dim sum with some of the Lin Hadong people. We don't know any of the Lin Hadong people really other than her. I kind of know a couple of them, but I don't really know any of them, so it was a little, we had like a kind of a short, awkward conversation, and then, in the end, it was a lot cheaper for us to actually go to Disneyland because we can get in for free. The most expensive thing there is the food, and if you just don't eat a lot, then it's okay, and if we go to a sit-in restaurant, we actually can get a bit of a discount. So in the end, it was kind of like, well, let's just go to Disneyland because I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'm going to be really cheap. And we decided while we were there, because, this is the second time that I've gotten Walt to go to Disneyland, and this is like my 10th time going. We did everything that neither of us had done the first time around. So there's all these different experiences you can do, like shows and things. Some of them are kind of cool. Some of them are a little okay. If you ever go to Disneyland Hong Kong, the Donald Philharmagic thing, that is really cool. It is like a 4D experience, which is really neat. And we did Tarzan's Treehouse and had our churros and kind of just hung out. And then we came back and hung out here last night, and he left this morning to go do his work. And I finally updated my blog for you guys, so that's exciting. Like I said, I'll put a whole bunch of things in the description for you guys, links, pictures on the blog, maybe little stories that I forgot to tell you guys about. As well, there will be a link in this blog for a video of the tunnels in Vietnam and Hue. I didn't mention this in the last blog, but if you go back, There obviously, or if you read the description, there's a link in that blog to a short clip of the Muay Thai fight that we saw. It was really cool. I actually managed to film the knockout punch, which was really cool. But yeah, so links in the descriptions below to the blog, to different videos, and to different information for your perusing pleasures. And I promise I will try my very hardest to update this regularly for you all and to leave my apartment with you guys so you can see some of Guangzhou and some of more of China than just my apartment wall, which is a little white. But until then, I will see you guys later.